Hi everyone, so this is an information video on breathwork. I wanted to make it for you to give you information about what it is, a little introduction, who it's for, who it may not be for, and what to expect from a breathwork session. Also, so that I can just give this video to the people that are coming to my events. I've got a few more lined up, and the people coming to me privately, so you can watch this before we connect in your breathwork sessions. And also for anybody who wants to tune in, who's a little bit curious, doesn't understand what it's all about, just to give you a little information so you're much more clear of what happens in a breathwork session and what you can get out of it. So I've written down the points so I don't forget anything. Now, I'm determined to get this video done in one take, so if I fumble around a bit, it's going up anyway. So here we go. Excuse me with my glasses. All right, so why do breath work? It's different from yogic breathing. Breath work, it can give you rapid healing from the 5 primary wounds that we all pretty much carry. Wounds like rejection, abandonment, humiliation, betrayal, injustice. These wounds we store in our tummy, and they come out in our life. So if you're dating or you're in relationships, wounds like rejection and abandonment can come up all the time, and they can really destroy a good thing. It can even push love away before it really comes in close because of stuff that you're carrying. So we want to be free of that stuff. So breathwork can really tap in to what you're storing inside from your past to free you of it. It can do it very quickly. Some people come to breathwork because of addictions. Let's say they've got a smoking addiction or something like that. And after one breathwork session where they're breathing all out for about 45 minutes, they can walk away free of that addiction. So it really gets in there, and I'll explain a little bit more about how it does that in a moment. But it's powerful stuff. Now, breathwork was used in place of psychedelics like magic mushrooms before they were legalized in Australia for therapy. And it was used in place of that for the, psychedelic psychotherapists, because before they were legalized, not even the psychotherapists could use them to experiment with their healing modalities. So breathwork was used instead of that. That's how powerful it is. So it can be like years of therapy in one session. I've done both. I've done healings, I've done therapy, I've been a coach, I've done breathwork, and for me, breathwork is my go-to now. I won't go to anybody else. I'll just go inside using the breath to clear stuff away. It's fast, it's efficient, and when you know how to do it, you can do it yourself if you want to. All right then, so apart from clearing the 5 primary wounds, any sort of birth trauma, any recent events, anything that's happened throughout your life, breathwork can tap in there and pull it out so you're free. Now, it also gets into the reticular activating system of your brain, so the RAS at the base of the brain. Your RAS is your filter for your reality. So it is programmed from years 0 to 7. So when you're in pretty much theta brainwave state, you live in theta brainwave state from 0 to 7. And that's where we're programmed. We don't really have any boundaries. We haven't figured out how to not let things in yet. And so we're just open funnels to bring in whatever is in our environment. And so that's where we're programmed. That's where our self-beliefs come from. And so the reticular activating system, your RAS, is what I like to plug into in breathwork sessions to pull out the weeds and plant in the roses. So that's a very simplistic summary of that, but that's your reality filter. So if you know anybody who's had any sort of issues with money, for example, if they were programmed at a young age that money is evil, only evil people have money, or you can't have money because you don't come from a wealthy background, whatever, then if that's a program, and it's a faulty one, then that's your reality filter. And so you will block all the ways to be wealthy. You won't invest in the right things, or you'll invest in the wrong things and have all your money taken away. Or these are the type of people that win the lottery and they lose it very quickly. So things like that, it happens in relationships all the time. It happens with people's health. If your RAS, your reticular activating system, is programmed not to be healthy or to be sick, then that's going to be your reality until you reprogram it. Now, I'm oversimplifying everything here because I want to get through this, but just so you've got an idea of the RAS, the reticular activating system, your programming, your reality filter, that's what we want to work on in these breathwork sessions, as well as any primary wounds and anything that's come up for you recently that you want to be free of and understand at a deeper level. Okay, so now theta brainwave state. So you might know we function at pretty much 5 brainwave states. Gamma is high frequency, beta is active, alpha, you're relaxed, theta is a state of hypnosis where you're highly suggestible, which is what we work on in breath work. We get you into theta. And then delta is deep sleep. Quite often after you've had a big healing, you'll get really, really tired because your nervous system wants to take you into delta to complete the healing. So it wants to knock you out pretty much to finish it off, finish the job. Now again, very simplified, but this is basically what we're targeting is the theta brainwave state in breathwork sessions. So we can get into your subconscious, into the programming, and weed out the weeds, planting the roses. So about 15 to 20 minutes into your breathwork session, when you breathe, like your sessions are normally about 90 minutes. So when you're breathing all out for about 45, 50 minutes, really going for it. There's different breath styles that I use depending on what we're looking for, what we're trying to achieve. About 15 to 20 minutes in, you get into a state called transient hypofrontality. That's a state where your monkey mind switches off, that part of your brain that tries to distract you or stop you from going into it. It switches off. So monkey mind, ego on vacation. They're taking a break, they leave you alone. Transient hypofrontality is also called flow state. It's a beautiful, blissful state to be in. Your mind just leaves you alone. It stops trying to tell you, I've got to go to the bathroom. Oh, Michelle's talking too much. I can't do this. This is not working for me. It's not going to work. I'm not doing it right. All that rubbish stops. And you have this state of peace. And when this happens, you're still breathing. Some people go somewhere at that state. They'd be like, they come out of it and they're like, oh, I wasn't sleeping, but I wasn't here. It's pretty awesome when you experience this. I've experienced it many times. And so that's your transient hypofrontality flow state where the monkey mind switches off. That's when we plug into the subconscious. That's where a lot of the big work gets done. All right, so there's 3 areas where something can come up for you when you're doing the breath work: physical, mental, emotional. Physically, this is really important. Of course, you can get dizzy, you can get tingly all over your body, you can get a dry mouth, of course. I tend to put on Vaseline before I do breath work because your lips can get a bit dry, your lips can get numb, you can get hot and cold. Now, with the dizziness, the tingling, now dizziness sometimes, if it gets too much, you just got to slow the breath down. Technique, but you're laying down. When you do breath work, you're laying down. Nothing under your head because you want nice open airways. But technique, this is one thing that happens to most of us doing breath work. Let's put this here. So where you get like crab claws or lobster claws, your hands can go like this. They cramp up and they can sort of go in like this. It's pretty funny to experience. It happens to me all the time, and it's just because there's a lot of gas exchange when you're breathing, and it's a very forceful exhale that will cause the tetany. Now, I don't care about it. I keep it. It doesn't bother me at all. I might roll my wrists, might wriggle my toes, doesn't matter. My hands are locked up because I'm not going to back down. I'm going to keep the full blast of my breath going because I want the full blast experience. But if tetany happens to you, don't worry, you're not going to stay like that. If you get dizzy or tingly or whatever else happens physically, you're not going to stay like that. As soon as you normalize your breath, the physical sensations that might be uncomfortable will go. Because I warn people very well of the tetany and all this sort of stuff, nobody that I've worked with has ever minded when it happens. I taught a class recently, a big group of people in one of the Virgin gyms, and they all got tetany, and because they'd been pre-warned, none of them cared. They were like, okay, this is tetany, it's actually quite funny. So they just kept going. So just know that those physical things can happen. Again, you're laying down, so you're totally safe. The only reason, breathwork has been studied for quite some time, over tens of thousands of people, and it's been considered like the safest form of healing that you can do. Really pretty much nothing can go wrong. The dangers are when you're breathing, then you do a breath hold. People often do that. Free divers can experiment with this underwater. Some of them have died because they're holding their breath underwater and they might pass out. But if you're holding your breath in a breathwork session where you're laying down somewhere, I wouldn't get you to hold your breath for a long time to the point of passing out. So if you're holding your breath for 30 seconds a minute, no problem. Nothing's going to happen, and you're laying down anyway, you'll be okay. So there's really no danger there. Mentally, I just mentioned that you will go into a state of transient hypofrontality, where your chatty mind leaves you alone, you get into flow state, it's quite blissful, it's really nice. Emotionally, of course you can feel emotions. So when we're storing stuff in the body, they're linked to emotions. It might be deep sadness, it might be anger, it could be anything like that, loneliness. So those emotions will come up, whatever's ready to be released, whatever's linked to the memory that you're healing or the wound. And it's beautiful. You get to feel it fully. Feel. You've got to feel it to heal it. So emotions can come up, absolutely. We want them to. And then you can cry. So crying happens to most people in a breathwork session. That's an energetic release. We want that. When I cry in a breathwork session, sometimes it happens at the end, sometimes a few times throughout. I'll cry as much as I need to cry. Feel that emotion fully, deeply. And when I'm ready, I come back to the breath. So crying's great. There's always tissues nearby if you're doing your breath work. So you can also, another energetic release, you might need to move a lot. You might need to shake. You might need to stomp your feet. The key is keep your eyes closed, keep the breath going, and move as much as you need to move. You don't have to be still at all. So that's another release, moving. Another release that's really important to know is laughter. So if at any point in your life, your laughter has been suppressed and that wants to be freed up so that you're more free and you're more liberated, some people can laugh non-stop, uncontrollably for like 15 minutes in a breathwork session. That's great. That's a healing. We want that. So just know laughter can happen. I taught a breathwork session recently to a group and I forgot to mention laughter. And there's this one girl in the room, she kept smiling at me. She was opening her eyes and smiling. I was like, I don't know why she's doing that. Maybe she's just not into the breath work. That's okay. But she said, oh, I'm sorry, but I really needed to laugh. And I don't know why. And I was like, oh, I forgot to tell you. That's a healing. You should have done it. She's like, I felt bad. I didn't want to be disrespectful, but I really wanted to laugh. I'm like, oh, never again. And so here's this video. Laughter is part of it. So if you need to release through laughter, laugh as much as you want. If you do, it's not like it's a choice. You'll need to. It will want to come out, just like crying will want to come out. So know that's part of it. You're doing it right. It's correct. It's an energetic release. And of course, screaming. Now, when I do breathwork sessions, I like to factor in 2 screams at the end. I always get people to cover their face with a pillow. Why? Because I don't want them to be interrupted. Recently, I taught a breathwork session for 50 people at Glebe Town Hall. I got them all to bring pillows. There was no way I was going to have 50 people screaming at Glebe Town Hall because police will come and that will destroy everything. And so even when people come to my home, or if you're in your home and we're doing something online together, I recommend having a pillow or 2 pillows close. It muffles everything. You can scream your lungs out to get that energetic release, but at least you won't attract attention, so you get to complete the healing. Because there's nothing worse if you're right at the end of the breathwork healing and you've got 1 or 2 screams happening, and then somebody comes and disrupts you and you've got to explain why you're screaming. Like, worst. So I always get people to cover their face with a pillow. And it just muffles everything. When people scream in my house, when they're doing breathwork with me, I can't hear them. I'm sitting across the room. I can't hear their scream. It's very, very muffled. So it does the job. So that's your 3 areas: physical, mental, emotional. Remember the tetany, remember the crab claws, lobster claws. That's a funny one. Guaranteed to happen if you're going to do 2-part breath with me. So the types of breath, you could do holotropic, euphoric, dopamine, deep belly breaths. They're targeting slightly different things. You're going to have slightly different effects. There's 2 key ones that I'll use in breathwork sessions, which I'll tell you when you come. Now, belly, I vaguely mentioned this at the start. Your belly holds the 5 primary wounds: your rejection, your betrayal, injustice, abandonment, humiliation. That's stored in the belly. Belly is also parasympathetic nervous system. So when you breathe into your belly, you're activating your parasympathetic, that beautiful calming response. In the chest, we store birth trauma. So if you had a traumatic birth, then, which I mean pretty much everybody does. We go from a really secure, beautiful, warm, nurturing space, ripped out into bright lights with strangers, and then quickly held by our mum, and then probably put in a crib, and probably sleeping alone in a crib with lots of other babies for the night. So that's traumatic for everyone. And then some people have extra trauma on top of that. So chest is where that's all stored. Chest is a home of sympathetic nervous system when you're breathing. So people that just breathe into their chest all day, every day, this is really common. They're just activating sympathetic. They're just activating fight, flight all day long. A very high rate of heart attack patients are chest breathers. Just know that. So we don't want to just be activating that, but we do want to activate both to sort of shake everything up so that you can clear it. So now contraindications. Who needs to be careful with breath work? Anyone that's had a heart attack in the last 5 years. Anyone with chronic anxiety or depression. It can trigger stuff. Doesn't mean you can't do breath work for any of this stuff. It's just a different protocol. Anyone on heavy duty mental health medication. You wouldn't even come to a breathwork session, like, you know, and I would screen you before, and I'd be like, no, it's not for you, because it's triggering for that sort of stuff. So heavy duty mental health meds, no. Osteoporosis. Now this is a funny one, but you know, gotta be safe. So anybody with brittle bones, because some people will thrash around in a breathwork session, that's fine. That's an energetic release. If they thrash their arm back and hit like a bench or something, they could break it if you've got osteoporosis. If you don't, you'll be fine. Now, so that's extreme, but I'm mentioning it as a contraindication just in case. Low blood pressure. Now that's only really an issue if you're doing deep belly breaths, so low, slow and deep. We call it LSD, low, slow and deep breaths. But again, I just give you a different protocol. So if you're coming to one of my events or you're coming to me privately for breath work, and there's anything that you might be concerned about or that I've just mentioned on this list, let's just chat and I'll just tell you what protocol to do. Now, if you are pregnant, you have to tell me, because if you're pregnant and you're doing a breathwork style that I would normally give at an event or in a private session, it can trigger an early birth. It can trigger premature labor, and that happened to my breathwork coach's wife. She went into early labor. The baby's fine, it's 4 years old now, but it can be a big deal, really big deal, and you don't want that to happen. So just let me know if you're pregnant, and again, you can still do it. I'll just give you a different protocol. I wouldn't give you anything that's too active. Okay, so if you've got major trauma from the past and you haven't processed it, you've just swept it under the rug, or you know, you're keen to process it, but it comes up, or you're just not sure, right? So let's just say you're in a session, you got heavy duty trauma coming up. Let's just say you're at one of my events and there's lots of people in the room, and you're like, oh, I don't want to deal with that now. I just don't want that to come up right now. I don't feel happy to do that here. Now, everybody that does breathwork with me feels very, very safe, very supported to go deep and just to go hard and bring it all up. I have that sort of vibe. Even at my events, people just go for it because they know they're safe, they're held, they're okay. I've got breathwork angels around, we've got you. But let's just say something comes up, you're like, whoa, let's just say you remembered something that you didn't remember before. And you're like, don't want to deal with that. Not right here, not right now. Cool, that's fine, you don't have to. You put your foot on the brake, you slow it down, you maybe close your mouth, you breathe deeply into your belly, that's it. It's going to slow back down, it's going to go away. And you can just choose when you're going to deal with that. Obviously, it's coming up for healing for a reason, so you can be free of it, but you don't have to do it on the day if you don't want to. Or you can go the other way. If something's coming up, this is what I do. If I feel something rising up, an emotion or something that I'm working on, or something that I didn't even expect to come up, but I'm like, oh, that wants to be free, that wants to be healed, cool. I will breathe harder and faster and harder and faster and harder and faster until it is out and I breathe all the way through it. And then that ends in me bawling my eyes out, which is fantastic, I love that. So just so you know, you can either put your foot on the brake, slow it down, be like, no, I'm not dealing with that right now, but I've clocked it, okay, I know that's coming up. Or put your foot on the gas and just charge straight through it and just face it head on and go, cool, let's be free today of this. Okay, just a couple of more points for you to know before you do breath work with me. Now, if you've got any other questions, that's fine, just send them through. My events are 90 minutes to 3 hours for breathwork, either 90 minutes or 3 hours. At the moment I've been teaching yoga and breathwork, yoga for any level, because the main thing is the breathwork. The reason I start with yoga for some of my events is just to really get you into your body and familiar with the surroundings and familiar with the other people, so you feel very safe in this space when we dive into the breath. Private sessions are on Zoom or in my home, sometimes in your home, depends where you live. So they're 90 minutes. They're 90 minutes. Sometimes I can speed it up a little bit as long as you watch this video about 3 times before you come. And we have a bit of a chat before you come. But I don't like to speed it up because it's really important that you dive into the journey and then you stay with me and you process for a little while after. You get to integrate what's just happened because it's a big healing. I'm also going to be recording some of my events that are coming up, so I'll put them on like a little video link and you can have them always for quite a cheap price. So that's coming up as well. So what can you expect from a breathwork sesh? A massive energetic release. You can be freed of like a trauma or just something that's happened recently that you're like, I'm done with this, I don't know, I've been overwhelmed or I've been really anxious and I don't know why, or I just had a breakup and that's really heartbreaking and I want to move on, or I'm carrying a lot of grief or anything. If you want to be freed of any of that stuff, breathwork is for you. It's a massive energetic release. You get to reprogram your reticular activating system, so that filter, the way you filter your reality, because quite often we can filter our reality that it keeps stuff out that is good for us and helps us to advance, so it can reprogram that, so we want that. What happens at the end of a breathwork session after you've done all the stuff, after you've had your releases, I often, and people that I work with often then receive wisdom and guidance. So wisdom from your own inner healer, your own inner wisdom, your divine intelligence within. So it tells you about what happened, why it happened, and what to do next. It's amazing, it's magic. It's like the best therapy you can ever have. And it all comes from inside of you. This is what I love. So I don't need to be this amazing therapist to teach this. I just need to know about everything I've been talking about. I need to know what I'm doing to guide you through it. But the beautiful thing I love about breathwork is that you are your healer. The wisdom comes from you. You're drawing it straight from source. Now, prana, breath in Sanskrit is prana, meaning spirit, so life force. You're drawing in divine intelligence. So that's the best therapy you can get. And that's just going to tell you what you need to know to move past whatever's been blocking you in your life. Now, you don't have to come to a breathwork session because you've got something specific to work on or any trauma at all. You might come just because you want to feel deeply connected to yourself. You might want to feel really in your heart, and that's what's drawing you in. Then great. You don't need a major drama in your life to be doing breathwork at all. It's just a beautiful way to connect as well. That's all I have to tell you guys. Okay, so comment below if you want. Please watch this about 3 times before you come to one of my events or come to a private session with me, just so you're fully up to date on the contraindications, on the physical stuff like the technique, the crab claws you can get, and just so you're fully loaded with all the information you need so you feel very safe to go absolutely hell for leather and just cut loose in the breathwork session and have the best healing possible, and just shoot through any questions that you may have before we catch up. Now, if you're watching this video and you don't know me, that's fine. You're welcome. It doesn't matter what country you're in. It doesn't matter what time zone you're in. We can connect and we can do this together if you want to. All right. Thanks, guys.